Advent Calendar Day 3. We're going to talk about the Norse mythology god of winter, Ullr, Ollerus, Olin, I might just say to make it easier myself, but he was most prominent during the 3rd century and prior. I know they know that the derivative of his name, which means victory or glory and fame. Glory and fame is where his sort of ambiance is. He is a very interesting guy because he's the stepson of Thor, but he's related to Odin. But interestingly enough, no one knows who his dad is. But it makes it very clear that he's related and so trusted by Odin, by the way, that when Odin leaves Asgard, this is the guy who's left in charge. It is Ullr. And he's very interesting because he's also considered the god of skiing, archery, oaths, snowshoes. This guy was a badass in winter. He, unlike the other deities that we're going to experience, he's almost like the Hercules of snow battling. Like, that's the vibe I get. He's sort of like ranger-esque, always dressed in green with furs. Like, he's every D&D ranger character of the wilds kind of vibe. He always carries his bow. He has the snowshoes. He is so good at archery that not even Thor can defeat him. No offense, Thor. That's not a far fetch. But here's the interesting. Normally, when you have a deity or a hero with items, right? So he has a bow, snowshoes or skis, depending which drawing or variation or story. And he's a ring. Those items are always with him. He's always drawn with them, portrayed with them. But none of these items are magical. I mean, the Blue Hag of Winter had a magical scythe, which makes her like a really badass reaper in a way. But besides that, none of Ullr's items are magical. None whatsoever. It is very, very clear and stated in several places that he didn't have magical items, but he was good at what he did. He was a god of these things because of his skills, of his talent, of his abilities, which I think is a very fascinating aspect. Unlike other winter gods, he has no correlation to the snow other than the fact that he rides on his skis or his snowshoes down the mountain with his bow, and he can pick apart anything on the horizon. So where does the ring come in? Rings, even now, have meanings, right? You wear certain rings to sort of stand out what oath you've taken of marriage or a promise ring, things like that. And that's sort of the concept behind Ullr's ring, right? It stands for that this is the guy who, if you're going to make a deal or a duel or make an oath, you would do it by Ullr's ring. Oh, hey, I promise to do XYZ by Ullr's ring, and that's how people knew. It's almost like high pinky promise, but same concept, right? This is you trying to give your word and that you're willing to incur a god's wrath. But here's the kicker. If you break an oath that you made in Ullr's name, it's not just Ullr who may appear, or if he even bothers. Instead, it has been said several times that Thor and Odin would be the ones showing up to show you what it means to break Ullr's, break an oath in Ullr's name. Which is interesting because it shows a level of kinship, right? That's one thing that I've always loved about Norse mythology. Like, okay, Greek Pantheon, we know everyone's related to everyone in it, and that tree keeps going and twisting in weird ways. But in Norse mythology, kinship had a more meaningful thing. You don't mess with family. Even when Loki, I mean, we watch the Marvel movies, right? The Thor and the Loki. You don't mess with family. And even if family makes mistakes, you do your best to let them know and to help them through tough times and wish the best for them. And that's a very interesting thing that the Norse Pantheon has. Now, the problem with Norse mythology, and it's not really a problem, it's a commonality with some of these more ancient and tribunal and oral mythologies and cultures and things, is that we don't really have much written down. So Ull's more of one of the, it's almost like ancient Greek Titan level kind of gods. He's always been there. He's been at the beginning of this. And he's found in Scandinavian. There's tales of him using a shield to float across, and that's how he came to Norway and Sweden and these other countries. But I just love the fact that this guy is like uber ranger of snow time winter weather. But strangely enough, people still, praise Ull when it's good snow weather, and he doesn't control weather at all. So he gets a lot of praise for stuff. And then Ullin is supposed to be like a female derivative. So here's the fun thing about a lot of the Norse mythology. They still don't know if it's a twin thing, like Freyr and Freya, or Freyr. I'm hashing it. I know it's bad. I'm so sorry. Or if it's more of Ullr and Ullin signifies Lord and Lady. But regardless, it signifies that he's of royal blood on that level. And strangely enough, if you're a big buff of Norse mythology, they're split into two parties. One's like war and strength. The other is like mysticism and harmony and nature. And Ull doesn't fit in. He fits in both, and none at the same time. He's an outlier, and it's just a really interesting aspect about him. And if you're looking for where you see this God of Winter, this super tanky ranger guy, you see him. Well, first off, most of Europe has places named after him. He's that deeply rooted into the culture and landscape that means. And there's certain places you can visit for that. Even then, he's completely inspired to ski culture, and as a ski god, he's very much talked of. And even in Colorado, there's ski lodges who invoke his name or name some of their lodges and locations after him. But he's also showing up in video games. I have to give the game industry great kudos, because they're so good at breathing life back into a lot of these mythologies and putting them back in front of the audience. Maybe not always in the iteration of which they were created originally by our ancestors, but the fact that you could play as Ullr in Smite and interact with him in the God of War series and things like that is pretty freaking awesome. So good job out there. So praise Ull for all things going smooth during winter time, I guess. But strangely enough, he doesn't have any godlike powers. He's just a really skilled guy that Odin trusted and had the backing of Thor, because he was Thor's stepson. So is he really a god at all? Huh. Subscribe, like, share, follow.